Android. Back in 2008, Android didn't arrive like the polished OS it is today. It showed up like an open playground. Built by Google and based on Linux, Android's entire personality can be summed up in one word: freedom. You can change launchers, install apps from anywhere, tweak settings most people don't even know exist. Manufacturers can reshape it completely, which is why a Samsung phone feels nothing like a Pixel. That flexibility is its biggest power. It's also the biggest weakness because when everyone can modify Android, consistency starts to crack. Updates arrive late or never. Apps behave differently across devices. Security depends heavily on how careful you are. Still, Android scaled like nothing else. From $100 budget phones to $1,500 flagships, it's everywhere. But then there's the opposite philosophy: iOS. In 2007, we all know how the iPhone changed the world. However, what we do forget is that with the iPhone also launched the most sophisticated phone OS. iOS is not about freedom, it's about control done right. Everything is tightly managed. Apps go through strict review. Hardware and software are built together like puzzle pieces. The result: smooth performance, long term updates, and an ecosystem that feels predictable in a good way. You don't worry about viruses, you don't worry about apps breaking, but that control comes at a cost. Customization limited. In fact, negligible compared to Android. App installs outside the App Store restricted. You are playing inside Apple's garden and the walls are very real. Still, for millions, that trade off is worth it. Now, here's where things get interesting because not every OS survived this battle. Windows Phone. Microsoft entered the smartphone war late, around 2010. But instead of copying Android or iOS, they tried something different: live tiles. Instead of static icons, your home screen moved. Messages updated in real time, weather tiles changed dynamically. It felt alive. It was clean, fluid, and honestly ahead of its time. Performance was smooth even on weaker hardware. The design language was bold and distinct from iOS and Android. So, why did it fail? Apps. Developers didn't show up. No matter how good your OS is, if users don't find their favorite apps, they leave. And they did. By 2017, Windows Phone was effectively gone. But Microsoft wasn't the only one that lost. BlackBerry OS. Before iPhones and Androids dominated everything, there was a time when BlackBerry ruled. Introduced in the late 1990s and evolving through the 2000s, BlackBerry OS was built for one thing: communication. Emails, messaging, security. It was a phone for professionals, governments, and anyone who cared about privacy. That physical keyboard, addictive, and its security was unmatched. But then touchscreens happened. BlackBerry was slow to adapt. Its OS wasn't designed for the app driven world. Developers ignored it, users moved on, and the brand that once defined smartphones faded. Now, let's rewind even further. Palm OS. Before smartphones were even called smartphones, Palm OS was already there in the mid 90s. Simple, lightweight, and fast. It powered PDAs, those early pocket devices that handled calendars, notes, and contacts. Think of it as the ancestor of every phone we use today. Palm OS was incredibly efficient. It ran on minimal hardware and still felt responsive. But it couldn't evolve fast enough. As mobile devices demanded internet, multimedia, and apps, Palm OS started to feel ancient. It quietly disappeared, but its DNA lives on in modern mobile design. Now, let's jump to something more recent but unexpected: KaiOS. KaiOS launched in 2017 with a very specific mission: bring smart features to young phones. Yes, those keypad phones you thought were extinct. KaiOS powers devices like the Nokia 8110 reboot. You get WhatsApp, YouTube, Google Maps, but on ultra affordable hardware. Its strength is accessibility. Millions of people in developing regions got internet access because of KaiOS. Battery life is excellent and devices are cheap, but the experience limited. Small screens, basic multitasking, and a very simplified app ecosystem. It's not trying to compete with Android or iOS. It's playing a completely different game. Now, here's an OS that had ambition but not enough time: Firefox OS. Mozilla launched Firefox OS in 2013 with a bold idea. What if apps were just websites? Everything ran on web technologies like HTML5. No heavy native apps, just lightweight browser based experiences. It was open, flexible, and aimed at low cost devices. But reality hit hard. Web apps couldn't match the performance of native apps. The experience felt slower, less polished. And once again, developers didn't fully commit, just like Windows OS. By 2016, Firefox OS was discontinued. Another experiment, another lesson. And now we arrive at something still unfolding. HarmonyOS. In 2019, Huawei faced a problem. Sanctions cut it off from Google's Android ecosystem, so it built its own, HarmonyOS. But here's the interesting part. It's basically trying to have iOS level of multi-device seamlessness. Phones, tablets, smart TVs, even IoT devices. The idea is a unified ecosystem where everything talks to everything. Performance is optimized and Huawei has pushed hard to build its own app ecosystem. But outside China, adoption is still limited. Apps are fewer, global developer support is still catching up. It's powerful but still proving itself on the world stage. And that's the real story behind mobile operating systems. Not just software, but competing visions of how phones should fit into your life. Freedom versus control, simplicity versus power, open versus closed. And every time you unlock your phone, you're choosing a side, whether you realize it or not. Now, if this made you look at your phone a little differently, there's a bigger picture missing. Tap into the video on your screen where I break down every operating system, not just mobile, in 6 minutes. It connects all the dots you just saw. And if you enjoy seeing tech explained like this, hit subscribe and drop a like. I'll see you in the next one.